Well, it was supposed to be an exciting day of action in Alberta as we're supposed to have two of the biggest powers competing in the World Junior Championships, but only one game was played. Also, Steven Ellis from the Hockey News stops by here on Locked On World Juniors.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Locked On World Juniors, our daily recap of the action from the World Junior Championships, a special little series here on Locked On NHL. I am your host, as always, the insider of the insiders, Tyler Kuehl, here on this Wednesday, December 29th. We were supposed to recap two hockey games today, guys. Unfortunately, only one was played, that being in Edmonton. We'll get to exactly what all happened on Tuesday that kind of led to the events that it was. Also, Steven Ellis from the Hockey News is going to help us break down some of the big name prospects in this tournament. All that and more here on today's episode of Locked On World Juniors. And with that, I must say thank you all very much for making Locked On World Juniors or Locked On NHL your first listen and watch today and every day. Of course, you guys know this probably by now. You can watch us on the Locked On NHL YouTube channel or catch us wherever you get your podcasts. So like I said, we will get to the Canada-Austria game later on. Also, Steven Ellis from the Hockey News. That'll be coming up here in just a few minutes. But we got to talk about the big news that came out of Tuesday. I was unsure. I mean, we all know that COVID's a big deal. All right. I don't think we can really remiss the fact that it's kind of it's tough. It is something that's been kind of affecting everyone for a certain amount of time, and unfortunately has not changed. Really, I mean, especially in the last 3 weeks, it has ramped up with this Omicron variant. Of course, Edmonton and Red Deer in the World Juniors capacity has been capped at 50% to try to, limit the spread. Well, the United States hockey team has unfortunately hit a massive bug. They had to forfeit their game against the Swiss on Tuesday because of too many positive COVID cases. And at least what we heard was 2 players, which double IHF rules is too many. Too many. So they had to forfeit the game. And I'm getting this right now from our good friends at sportsnet.ca so I can make sure I get the definitive details for you. I don't want to paraphrase. I don't want to mess anything up because, well, unfortunately, this is kind of a big deal. Given the fact that, the players isolated when they arrived to either Red Deer or Edmonton, they had to quarantine as well when they got in. And unfortunately, somehow a case broke through. In this case, 2 cases. The American team was placed on mandated quarantine as a result. The game was scheduled to be played Tuesday afternoon, however, which is co-hosting, of course, the men's under 20 event. The game will be recorded as a 1-0 win for the Swiss. So technically the Swiss now will improve, quote unquote, to 1-1 on the tournament. And it's kind of a bummer. And John Van Beersbrook, the U.S. junior team general manager, and now the Olympic general manager as well, that just got announced yesterday as well. He said, quote, "We're extremely disappointed, especially for our players. We're operating in an ever-changing landscape, and that's very challenging. We followed the tournament protocol from the outset, and we'll continue to do everything we can to ensure our players have the opportunity to compete at the World Junior Championship," end quote. Now, this is more, they're going to do a lot of testing tomorrow, obviously, to see how many of these are false positives, because once again, these are rapid tests that these players and staff are taking prior to the games. And of course, the U.S., similar to what Canada is going to have, they're in the first half of a back-to-back. The U.S. scheduled to be playing Sweden in what could be, what many are believing to be, the game that may determine the top spot in Group B. Now, once again, if the Americans have to forfeit, I'm not exactly sure what the plan would be moving forward, but that would mean the Americans would fall to 1 and 2. There's not really been any word as of right now because no one wants to see a team have to pull out because of COVID. That's why they're trying to see if these are false positives, because if so, then this game tomorrow between the Swedes and the U.S. can be played. More or less that today's postponements were because there are 2 positive tests and that they have to, kind of an abundance of caution. Yes, everyone's favorite phrase, abundance of caution. They have to step aside and say, hey, you know what? We kind of have to figure something out instead of trying to play a game if we're unsure. Now, and also they're probably trying to see if there are other players that may have been infected because, there's only 2 players. Well, you brought so many with you, you could still play. Yes, in theory, but the IHF doesn't want to take that chance because if they spread that to the Swiss moves it to other teams, and all of a sudden we have a whole kit and caboodle of cases across this tournament. And we have what's similar what people saw when it was the NWHL, the National Women's Hockey League Isabel Cup last year in Lake Placid, where unfortunately coronavirus tests and positive tests kind of just spread throughout the entire of all 6 teams that were playing. So as of right now, it's kind of up in the air what's going to happen. There are no games scheduled for Saturday, but a makeup game cannot be played that day because the Swiss could end up playing games in 3 straight days if they make the quarterfinals. That, according to a IIHF spokesman telling the Canadian press. So this is going to be, so that's why they had to forfeit the game for the Americans. It's uneasy. It's tough to see this because you really hope that this doesn't spread, because we want to have this tournament. We want to have all these games being played. We want to have everyone safe and whatnot, because that's the most important thing here with this tournament and, with society as a whole right now. So I hope that these are false positives, or if anything, that no one else is infected, that they can play the game against Sweden and then ensuing play Russia on New Year's Eve so they can continue on in the tournament, because this is an American team. I mentioned it, and we'll hear from our guest Steven Ellis here in a minute. This is a team that could be going to the gold medal game. I know they're a little bit different on the back end, but they still have the scoring touch. And, I don't want to call it coincidentally or ironically, but Trevor Zegras, who was the star of Team USA last year, has just been put on COVID protocol with Maxime Comtois, a former Canadian World Junior player. So, yes, COVID is still well known here, and it's still making its presence felt, and it sucks because nobody wants to see this. So we hope that everything is okay. Obviously, this is going out early in the morning. We will know more by the time you may actually hear this or watch this episode, and we'll obviously talk about that on Thursday edition of Locked On World Juniors. So that said, let's move along here. Well, like I said, we'll get to Canada, Austria in just a little bit, but on the other side here, we're going to talk with Steven Ellis. That is right, Steven Ellis from the Hockey News. He is a good colleague of mine. I've had the pleasure of working with him in the past. He knows so much. He's one of the best draft experts out there. Loves covering all the prospects and obviously the World Juniors. Got to work with him kind of off on a side project of mine at the under-18s last year. We'll definitely mention that and more in just a moment's time. But guys, I got to tell you about it's the new year. So that means New Year's resolutions. It's yours is about getting fit or eating healthier. Make sure you include Built Bar in your plan. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar and maybe even better than a candy bar. Built Bar makes it easier to stick to your resolution because that tastes so good you'll want to eat it. Unlike other protein bars, which can be chalky or waxy or taste like a chemical spill, you want to eat healthy, but it just gets so boring. And by like week 3, you're thinking, is this not worth it? Where's even chocolate? Well, Built Bars, guys, are made with real chocolate. And here's an idea for the new year. Go all secret and get some treat stashes at home, in the pantry, at the office, in the car, wherever. Throw out all those sugary or calorie-filled treats and replace them with Built Bars. So you're craving a snack or a treat, you can reach for something healthy and tastes incredible. Go to Built.com right now to use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your first order. Once again, that's the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. And as we mentioned off the top of the show today, guys, we are chatting it up with one of the best draft experts in the game. He writes for the Hockey News out of the 416. It is Steven Ellis. Steven, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am doing well. How was the holiday? I see you're at your parents right now. How are they all doing? Everyone safe up there?
It's been good. It's been obviously it's not as much fun when you can't really do anything exciting, but it's been a lot of hockey. It's been kind of a nice, refreshing change from the doom and gloom kind of leading up to Christmas.
Yeah, it's nice, and I unfortunately in the middle of it myself. I mean, down here in the States, they're still very lenient and liberal with those sorts of rules and whatnot, but the NHL is keeping it hard. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about the World Juniors, of course, here on this Locked On World Juniors episode today. And I really want to talk to you, Steven, about the prospects that are coming in, because this year has a lot of, there's a couple overagers or a couple guys that are on the cusp of this being their last chance to play in the tournament. But there's a lot of new faces and a lot of younger players, a lot of draft eligible kids that are on the table here in this tournament. Something, people are looking forward to. And I myself, I do a Washington Capitals show. There's a couple of people that maybe the Washington Capitals will pick up, and other teams across the NHL. Let's start off with, in my eyes, the big 3. The 3 I was able to really see in spades a lot last spring in the under-18s, and that was Matvei Mishkov from Russia. And then, of course, on the same line, dare I say, Shane Wright and Connor Bedard. these three, I mean, Shane Wright's the only one that's draft eligible this year. Mishkov and Bedard next year. But let's start with Shane Wright. I don't know what more I can say about him, but for those that don't know, Steven, what makes Shane Wright at this point, the lock to be the number one pick next year's draft?
Well, it's funny because if you just watch kind of what he did in the first game against Czech Republic, or even against Russia in the pre-tournament game, or even those games that he played against U Sports, he's had a very quiet few weeks. But this is a guy that it's very tough because he got the exceptional status to go play in the OHL a year early, and he deserved it. He played on a Don Mills Flyers team that was unbelievably dominant, but he was the driving force of that group. And we knew at that point, okay, this guy's going to be a game changer. And he goes and plays a great year in Kingston. He was out there trying to be like at the same level what John Tavares was doing at the same age. And well, we're not talking about a Connor McDavid style player here. We're still talking about a guy that we expect to hit 90, 100 points consistently throughout their careers or his career. So it's looking really good. He's kind of just the jack of all trades. He's very good defensively. He could shoot really well, a very good playmaker. It's been kind of a rough road, though, for him in the last little bit because last year the OHL season was canceled. And that was the year we were like looking at it and say, okay, he's going to hit 100 points. Like this is going to be a fantastic year in Kingston. He was going to lead that team on a far run. And he's played well this year. Kingston still could probably give him a bit more talent to work with. Martin Chromiak's a fantastic player, but there's still more talent they could throw in there. But he's just got kind of just everything you're looking for from a top flight player. And I really hope he kind of gets a chance to showcase that in this tournament. We've seen a lot where you look at a guy like Quinton Byfield was someone who got criticized for his play as this highly rated prospect that kind of never really did a lot at the World Juniors outside of beating up with Germany. I kind of hope Shane Wright doesn't fall in that same boat because this is a guy that's got so much talent and I just want him to be able to show it.
Well, I remember you mentioned Byfield because that was the year Alexis Lafreniere just tore it up, and that was that was Dale Hunter, right? Yeah, that was Dale Hunter. And Dale Hunter's like, you know what, OHL kid, you go sit. Quebec League kid, you go to the top line, and I think that's what happened in that tournament. That's what, of course, Canada ended up winning because of Akil Thomas, who, you know, everyone saw pretty well from the Ottawa 67s there, and hopefully he gets his shot with the LA Kings one of these days. Let's move to Connor Bedard here. I remember when he was granted exceptional status in the Western Hockey League, the first player to ever do it, I, myself, and a couple other people said, this is probably the dumbest thing ever. This kid's going to get killed. And he's only one of the best players in the league. And, you know, similar to Shane Wright, taking a little bit of a dip this year so far with the Regina Pats, but still, he has something and he has room to grow before next year's draft in 2023.
See, I probably should stay out of arguing with people on hockey card Facebook groups, but there was a lot of talk about how like Connor Bedard, like his trading cards have gone for a lot of money. People are like, why do you care so much about a guy who's like 60 something in WHL scoring? It's like, well, look at the context. He's an underage player. He's a point per game on a team that truly not very good. And he's having to create a lot of that offense himself. He played really well last year. We know just how good he could be when he's playing at his best. And this is someone where he could take over a shift whenever he needs to. And we knew about this guy from a young age. I think it was like he was 12 years old the first time one of my former colleagues, Ken Campbell, wrote about him in the Hockey News. And it's like, this guy is going to be something super special someday. And he's doing that. And the numbers he put up at such young age is incredible. And I think when you look at him, he's a great goal scorer, and the numbers don't lie. From Bantam and from prep school and all that stuff, he was playing some fantastic hockey. He went over to the Swedish U20 league, which isn't the highest level, but playing as a 16-year-old, going out there and getting a point per game in 4 games. He played really well in those 4 games. I did watch him. He stood out. So he's been just kind of good everywhere he's gone. He's just playing on a team where, again, look at Shane Wright. He probably needs a bit more to play with. Connor Bedard probably needs it way more. And I think that this is just a guy who's going to have so much talent. We saw he played really well in the pre-tournament game. I thought he played well yesterday against Czech Republic, and all they got to do is give him ice time. We look at Cale Makar in 2018, I believe it was, when he was on the Canadian team, and he wasn't playing much. And it's like, what's going on? Why won't they give him opportunities? And as soon as he started playing, oh man, he's the best player on the ice, and ends up being one of the top defensemen. Connor Bedard needs that opportunity, but I'm okay with him being the 13th forward for Canada because you can kind of slot him in wherever you need. And I think that's pretty valuable. Like looking at like he's more talented than Will Cooley, but Will Cooley got more opportunities yesterday. Well, what gives? Well, Will Cooley plays this intimidating role. He could play a shutdown role on the fourth line. You don't want Bedard doing that. You want Bedard to have the freedom to play anywhere and score. So I think we're going to see that at some point later in this tournament.
Yeah, especially the way that first period started for Canada. I don't think they needed to worry about goal scoring. Holy smokes. But but yeah, I mean, you mentioned Bedard because I mean, we saw him at the under 18s last year. The first couple games, Bruce Levine and I were calling games. We're like, all right, he's gonna break out. But like the thing was, like he didn't play a whole lot the first couple games, and all of a sudden the later games and they got into the medal rounds and they put him on the ice and he just lights it up, scores that highlight reel goal in the gold medal game against Russia, and all of a sudden I was like, oh yeah, Connor Bedard, that guy is pretty good. No duh, put him on the ice, see what happens. One guy that I'd say made a pretty solid impact, and even though it was in a losing effort, was Matvei Mishkov. He, for Russia, and they were playing in a game against Sweden. It looked like the game was well out of reach. It's 4-1. Then Mishkov says, I got this, everybody. Come on my back. I'm the new Russian machine that's never going to break. He scores 2 goals back-to-back, and not flashy goals, but the fact that he was out there creating opportunities just shows that he's going to be something real special. And we'll kind of touch on that here, but I think the scary part is, and they mentioned this on the broadcast yesterday there, Steven, is the fact that he's locked up with SKA till, 2026? Which isn't that kind of a spook? I mean, is that going to deter teams away here as he goes into his draft year next season?
I think it really depends on what the team is that's drafting. If it's a team that actually already let's say LA just completely just falters and they get the first round pick in 2020 or first overall pick in 2023. Well, they've got a good base to work on where they can be patient. And obviously when you look at it, you got fan response. It's like, we don't want to wait. And when you have to wait for a player, you are putting yourself in danger territory as a GM. The Minnesota Wild, obviously they had to wait a while for Kirill Kaprizov, but everyone kind of knew the wait would be worth it when he eventually came over. In this case, Michkov, to me, I think he's actually better than Bedard. Depending on who you talk to, they'll look at it completely different. But I think what we've seen is Michkov can be the best player in the tournament, regardless of age, whenever he needs to be. And Russia needs him more than Connor Bedard is needed in Canada. Bedard could have missed the team altogether, and I wouldn't be concerned. But if Michkov missed Russia, we're talking about a totally different situation, especially when you look at how bad the defense has been on that team. But for Michkov, I think that he's just got so many dynamic tools where there's just nothing really that stands out as a negative for him. And that's really easy to say about a player we don't have the biggest overall book on because he's younger and we don't have an extra year of development or looking at him. But he's just someone where he's a late 2004 born kid. So he would actually, if he was born a few months earlier, he could have been drafted this year. So he has that edge, but he's played a lot of pro hockey. He's looked good in pro hockey. He's been Russia's best player at almost every tournament he played in. The skill is definitely there. And we've also kind of seen from him in this tournament that he doesn't need to put on the greatest goal scoring move we've ever seen to get goals. He can work those dirty areas. He threw a giant hit on Simon Edvinsson, who's got to be at least 25 feet taller than him.
Yeah, no kidding.
Has to have at least 70 pounds on him and threw and knocked him down. This guy's got grit to him. There's almost a lot of he's got a lot of Ovechkin in him. He's got a lot of Kucherov on him. He doesn't have Ovechkin's size, but he's just got that grit. And when you got someone who's playing the physical, but then the offensive game and could be so good defensively and the speed works, he's the perfect package. So a team that is willing to be patient is going to get some incredible hockey out of him. It seemed really stupid as to why they signed him to a long-term deal. I don't know if that's maybe to kind of put pressure on an NHL team to somehow buy that contract out down the way. It's it didn't make sense. From the time they signed it, it does make sense now. He would be ready to step into the NHL. I would say next year. I'm that confident in his abilities. So it's kind of a shame, but if you're willing to be patient, you're going to get a massive payoff. And we're talking only a couple of years. We're not talking 5, 6. We're talking 3.
Right, exactly. And by the time he becomes available, the salary cap will grow to $10 million. It'll be great. You can sign it, and you'll have no worry about any Kirill Kaprizov issues, of course. And I think, yeah, if he could probably play in the NHL tomorrow. But once again, hey, you know what? If I was a 16, 17-year-old kid and said, we're going to give you millions and millions of rubles, whatever that translates to American Canadian dollars, for a long time, and we're going to take care of you. Sure, I'll do that.
And a good program, too. A very good program there in Scott St. Petersburg. So he's getting good coaches. He's getting good players. He's got 5 points in 13 KHL games this year, which is actually really impressive considering you don't typically see guys getting a lot of ice time at that level. And he did have some games where he played under 5 minutes and even a couple games where he dressed but didn't play. But the coaching staff is giving him those chances. And if I'm correct, it's Valerie Bragin who's the coach. And he's not known to giving young guys a lot of opportunities. We saw it at the World Juniors where you get this super talented 17-year-old and he would never play. And then the next year be the best player in the tournament. It's just kind of weird like that. But he's given those opportunities, and they're not rushing him either. Like they're setting him back down to the MHL, and I believe he's almost got like 30 points in like 11 games. Like he's out on fire.
Yeah, it's not fair.
He's going to be something super special. You just got to be patient. I know if you look at social media, hockey fans are not patient. They'll look at, oh, well, this guy made it to the NHL first before this guy. Clearly, that guy's going to be so much better. And then it doesn't end up being the case. So if you are a team that picks this guy, you really got to be patient because you are getting a guy that is going to be an MVP candidate for most of his career.
Yeah, there's been a couple of those guys, and you can go down the list like Trevor. Everyone's like, oh man, because Zegras was a. I'm thinking of Trevor Zegras here. Was he a 19 draft or was he an 18 draft?
He was 19.
Yeah, so I'm going to say people are like, oh my goodness, Alexis Lafreniere's got to be better because he's there first. Well, Trevor Zegras is like, I take that. He went full Michael Jordan. He took that personally.
Well, see, the other one right now is we're looking at thinking of goaltending. It's Jesper Wallstedt. People are saying like, oh, like are the Red Wings going to like regret taking Kosa? Kosa's the backup on Canada, and Wallsted's the starting goalie in Sweden. It's like, well, those are two different goalie situations, so they're not comparable.
Yeah, I mean, Canada has 3 really good goaltenders, and I'm not knocking the Swedish goaltending system there because
it's good. It's very good there, but it's not. I would say it's not as strong as Canada's right now.
Yeah, 100%. Let's kind of look around the rest of the pool here. Obviously, those are the big 3, the ones that everyone's talking about because, of course, when you get the projection of number 1 overall or top 2 as a 16-year-old, especially with Bedard and Meshkov's case, but there's a lot of other draft eligible talents that are available for this year's draft. And you wrote one recently about Brad Lambert. He had a couple of assists in Finland's opening win against Germany. I got to see him at the under-18s. He's actually one of the few players that has Finnish and Canadian nationality, or he's a dual citizen in that case, could play for either or, choose to play for Finland. And he fits in well with that program there. What do you think his stock is looking like in this tournament?
It's funny because I remember seeing my very first interview with Lambert, and he sounded super Canadian, and it's like over time he sounds a little bit more Finnish. But this is a guy that I made the argument that he kind of fell off of some people's radars, and I don't think it was fair. This is a guy that last year we were talking about him being a top 3 pick. And at some points in the year, we're saying, is this the real number 1 for 2022? And he's kind of fallen off. He hasn't had a great season in Liga, but this is someone where if he can get his consistency in order, and that's way easier said than done. Say, hey, just be more consistent. Well, that's not easy to do. But if he was able to be more consistent on a game-to-game basis, he's got the talent, he's got the skill, he's got the smarts, he's kind of got everything you're looking in there. Kind of like we were saying with Mitchkov, to a lesser extent. Very reliable, could play wing and center almost equally as well. So he's becoming stronger. He's become he's getting better at faceoffs. I asked him about that. He said that faceoffs have been a huge thing of his game. So he's a more dynamic player than he was last year. He just needs those results to be consistent. And we see a lot of guys playing in Europe that are really talented playing pro hockey that are only playing 5 minutes a game. Lucas Raymond is a perfect example of that in his draft year. For Lambert, he's actually had those opportunities, but he's not really playing necessarily super key moments, or the matchups haven't been great, so he hasn't had that chance to really shine. We would like to see a lot more from him, but I'm still thinking this is someone where you look at Aatu Ratti, who was a top prospect for 2021, and now it looks like he's one of the best prospects from that draft, and you got drafted like 2nd round. I think we're going to be talking about Lambert in a similar way, not in the 2nd round, but as someone where, okay, he's a top 5 player from this draft, no question.
Yeah, I say he had his moments when I saw him in the under-18s, and people right now are looking at the list like, Ty, you want to ask him about someone that wasn't playing in Texas last year? I'm like, I'm sorry, this is just from what I saw.
That was a great tournament. That was fun. You did great commentary, by the way.
Oh, Steven, stop it. I'm supposed to be pumping your tires, not the other way around here. Steven, a couple more things here before we let you go. Unfortunately, we can't talk to you for 2 hours because I'll get fired here on Locked On NHL. But who is one player that either you're really excited about that no one's talking about, or just who is kind of under the radar, like a really good prospect that nobody is really given that same limelight as to say, a Wright or a Bedard, or even some of the guys that have already been drafted like Edmondson and company?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm writing a story about it actually today about Martin Chromiak. Is not a guy who's like when you look at Slovakia, there's a lot of talent on that team, and a lot of people are focusing on the young guys like Dalibor Dvorsky and Juraj Slavkovsky, Simon Nemec. I'm thinking, look at Chromiak. Like Chromiak was like excellent in that game against the Americans, and I think that this is someone where the LA Kings, they have such a good prospect base. We mentioned them earlier, but he's not kind of mentioned as like a top one of their few guys. But it's like if he ends up being like a 3rd-line NHLer, I think he's going to be a really solid 3rd-line NHL player. He works really hard. He's got good speed. And the one thing I asked him about last night is, what's one thing that stands out in your game now compared to last year? And when he played in this tournament, he had only one goal. And he's like, confidence. He says he's willing to take the puck, take opportunities here, and kind of just really just do what he needs to do to make plays work out. So he's someone I'm really kind of excited about. And to keep it actually in the LA Kings system, Samuel Helenius. And this is someone where we last year he played really well at this tournament. I believe he had 2 goals, 2 assists, and he's been kind of good. And whenever Finland has needed him to be in the last couple of years, but he's kind of almost good at just in spurts. This is a guy where I think he'll make the NHL, but he'll make the NHL because he's 6'6" and can just punish people. But he also has that offensive skill that we're starting to kind of see in a more consistent basis this year. And LA is really good at finding good value. Yeah, he's not going to scream out to you and say, this guy is going to be a game changer for the team. But it's like, you put him on your fourth line. Well, he's a tough fourth line player to play against. And you need to get good drafting help. You need to draft better than just getting a guy who's going to be your first line goal scorer or a second line secondary guy. You need to get guys who can play those roles really, really well. And he could be put into a scoring role on the Finnish national team, but then he'll go back and he'll play a really good defensive role. He'll play a physical role. So LA's got some really good guys, and those are 2 guys I'm really looking at as maybe not someone that we're going to hear a lot about in this tournament. But Helenius did get 2 goals in his first game and stopped an amazing opportunity. So I like them.
Yeah, Brad Lambert set up. It was a part of both the goals. I'd say he set up, but the first one he just fluttered on goal, and Helenius happened to hit off him. But you mentioned that.
I never even saw Helenius actually touch that. After all the replays, I couldn't pinpoint him actually touching it.
The IIHF is legendary on just changing stats after the game. Like, they're amazing at it. Like, not like the NHL where they'll try to change it in game. The IIHF's like, the game's over, but you know what? That first Finnish goal way back in the first period. Let's change that. Let's make it like
no one was thinking about that. No one was debating it. But then, Helenius kind of they found a camera shot of him pointing to his leg as if it hit his leg. It was very hard to tell from the camera angles. But I would also, if I'm the player, I think I would feel that if a puck hit me in the leg.
Oh, just a little bit. I know it wasn't the hardest shot, but Helenius, like you said, he made the game-saving play because he's not back on defense there. Germany ties the game, and we're having a much different discussion about Finland after the first game. Speaking of that, I'm going to put you on the spot here, Steven, because I love doing this to people. And obviously everyone knows that you're from Canada and whatnot. So everyone's like, oh, he's going to pick the Canadians to win the whole kit and caboodle. Who do you think? I'll let you do this. I'm not going to have you pick a gold medal winner because I'm not that guy either because I'm really good at jinxing everything. Who is in the bronze medal game and who's in the gold medal game when we talk next week?
Bronze medal game, I'm going USA, Finland.
Wow. The Americans falling out somehow.
I like the American team. I just don't think they have the game changer on this year. You look at Zegras last year, then Spencer Knight, guys like that. I don't think they have that this year, but they're a really solid team. And I know a lot of people didn't pick them to even get to the top 3, but I do. My gold medal game, Canada versus Sweden. And I could give you my gold medal pick if you like.
Well, if it's Canada, Sweden, knock on wood. How many times have we done this story before, Steven? I mean, you have 2008, you have 2009 back-to-back years, 2017 was it, or was it 7? No, 18 in Buffalo, right? Yeah, I mean that's a long list of games.
I will say that I love Sweden. I love Sweden's team, and I think when you look at how good Mason McTavish is, you got to also say, well, look at Alex Holtz and look at William Eklund. They play great.
That line, Olesen, Eklund, and Holtz. I said that's going to be a line to watch for coming into this tournament because those 3 just work together so well. And we saw it in their first game too.
I just think when you look at Canada, I just think they got a bit more scoring depth and a bit more defensive depth. But Sweden is just like that team. I know it's easy to say every year, all these guys will be a favorite, and then they always seem to find a way to lose it. I think this year they actually have one of the best chances we've seen in the last decade to get a medal here, or get a goal, I should say.
Well, they have a 1-game round robin win streak, so they got that going for them. Let's see if they can keep that up as we go along here. I gave my picks of who's going to be in the gold medal game. I think it's going to be Canada versus the U.S. because why not? Because I want to be tortured once again in the gold medal game, as it always is. Because the Americans and Canada always goes well for one team. Let you figure that out.
That's the thing. It's like you look at it, and the Americans typically beat Canada. If it's Canada USA, I'd almost just by default.
Canada USA in the round robin. Canada USA in the round robin. Sweep Canada easily every single day of the week. Flip it around though when it comes to the medal rounds.
The Americans could probably just decide to put Cooley in net, and they'll probably just figure a way to win because Canada will just forget how to score in the final game, and we just see that every year.
Stop
Like
it.
scoring
Stop
was
it,
not
Steven.
scoring was not an issue for Canada last year until they played the Americans in the
Yep.
medal game, and the Americans just made them look stupid, and that's what they do really well. It really just it really depends on how the draw works for the quarterfinal.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, you even go back to 04, like that stacked Canadian team that was there, which a lot of them came back for 05 because they had to win for some reason. Of course, then again, the lockout really helped that year. But anyways, we've been chatting up here with Steven Ellis from the Hockey News. Guys, go check him out. Follow him at Steven Ellis, or Steven Ellis THN. It's right down there, down right below him over there. If you're watching on the Locked On NHL YouTube channel, Steven, thanks again for stopping by, man. It's always good catching up with you. I know your first time probably here chatting with me here on this program, but it's always fun talking some junior hockey, some non-NHL stuff with you. It's always a good time.
Absolutely. Love it so much. Thanks so much.
And once again, a huge thank you once again to Steven Ellis from the Hockey News for jumping on. Yes, I know the interview was done yesterday, but you know what? It was a lighter day today because we only had one game. And that one game was Canada and Austria. Holy cow. What a performance from Team Canada. Now, yes, was this expected? Kind of. Was it a big, one-sided game? Yes. And it's a bummer because Austria is one of those teams that, they're a program that is kind of fortunate. They're kind of fortunate with the circumstances that they cannot get relegated for the second year in a row, because they need exposure like this. They need exposure playing in the top tier tournaments, being in the top division of the World Junior Championships, if they want to continue to develop hockey in their country, especially up from their international programs. So is it bad that you're getting beat 11-2? Yes, I get that. That is a tough mark to have on your hockey team. But eventually I think it'll come around. Now let's look at it from the Canadian side of things. They got out fast, they got out quickly, and boy, did they come ready to play. I was not sure what to expect, to be honest with you, because at least I didn't think how badly Canada was going to beat them. Because obviously we've seen it before. Denmark from 2019 tournament. It beat Kazakhstan, I think, was it 2008, and handled like 16-0. This is something that's happened before. But we've never really seen a team come out and just decimate a team early. The shots were 18-1 in the first period. They got goals from Kent Johnson, Lucas Cormier, and Logan Stankoven to start things off. And then Connor Bedard scores back-to-back goals. Connor Bedard, the 16-year-old sensation. People are already picking him to be the number one pick in 2023. People are like, oh, I don't know. I'm not so sure about that. But boy, he looked good. And this was an important game for him too, because I said this before, and I said that during the interview with Steven. Connor Bedard had the problem where he couldn't get a point, couldn't really get a goal in the first couple games. You were kind of unsure of how he was feeling, his first experience playing for Team Canada. And then he started lighting it up after he got that first goal. He scores the first one in the first period and wastes a little time to score the second one. He scored both goals a minute 11 apart in the first period. Bedard then rips home the hat trick goal on a nice little play in the second period. And he also added one more as well in the third period, becoming the sixth Canadian player. No, sixth. He was the sixth Canadian player in World Junior history to score 4 goals in a game. I had to make sure because Maxime Comtois was the last one during the 2019 tournament in that game against Denmark. And a real great performance out of Canada. I really thought they had this. You knew that they were going to win, but you just didn't know how crazy it was going to be. They ended up out shooting. I don't have the official number on me as of yet, but the final shots were something along the lines of 64. The 64, they put it up yet? They have not put it up yet. At the time I'm recording this, they have not. 64, though, I believe were the final shots on the TSN board, 64-23 in favor of Canada. And Bedard even had a couple of chances late in the game as well. Like, it's not a really big instance, or not many instances when there's like almost a 10-goal margin in a game where you're having the hometown crowd screaming, shoot the puck in the dying seconds to get 5 goals. Being the first Canadian to do it would have been Bedard. And also, I should also mention that's the most goals scored by a 16-year-old in this tournament, scoring 4 goals, did Bedard. A great performance out of him. I mean, what more can you say about him? He's a dynamic player. I know the last one was a tip-in goal, but he showed in this game that he has another level. And it's going to be exciting to see. They play Germany tomorrow. That's going to be an interesting game because Germany has they had the day off, and they're coming off that big win against the Czechs. And that'll, of course, lead into the New Year's Eve matchup between Canada and Finland on Friday. Mason McTavish had 2 goals and 2 assists. Cole Perfetti with a goal and 2 assists as well. 21 saves for Brett Brochu, who had a little bit of a weird let up on the first goal that was given up. Zinez Roher, who actually ended up getting player of the game for the Austrians, kind of was chasing the puck down. Brochu came way out of his net, played off to the side, couldn't clear it though as Roher got it, threw it out in front. Luke Nechesny, I think it was Nechesny, was able to pot it in, made it I believe it was at that point a 6-1 game, 8-1 game. And they did get another goal later on. Matthias Baum scores on the power play. That made it 11-2. And I'm pretty sure I didn't miss any other goals. Cole Perfetti scored another. I should have mentioned that. A goal and 2 assists for the Winnipeg Jet prospect. Big win for Canada. They're 2-0. Austria now 0-2. Important for them to try to bounce back. They do have a day off themselves. Their next game will be against the Czechs on Thursday, and then Germany on Friday. Tough go for them. It's going to be a real tough part because Germany was going to be the one game that you thought they may have a chance to be really competitive, but having it be on the second half of a back-to-back against the Czechs, and of course Germany will be rested because they have a day off in between the game against Canada on Wednesday and the game on Friday. So tough road for Austria, but at least they know that they will be coming back in the tournament in Russia next year. So that is it, folks, for this edition of Locked On World Juniors. Here for this, just wrapping up the action on December the 28th. I just want to make sure I remember what day it was because they're starting to blend together here. Action tomorrow, 4 games on tap. 2 o'clock game, the 2 o'clock game 2 o'clock, 12 o'clock local time out there in Edmonton, Finland taking on Czechia. Big game there. The Finns trying to kind of extenuate the win they had against the Austrians on Monday. And then, of course, Czechia trying to bounce back from their loss against Germany, trying to get their first win of the tournament. Slovakia and Russia will be playing over in Red Deer, 4:30 Eastern time, 2:30 local time. Canada takes on the Germans at 7 o'clock Eastern time, and 5 o'clock local time in Edmonton. The nightcap, as of right now, is scheduled to be Sweden and the United States. We'll just have to wait and see. Out in Red Deer, that'll be a 9:30 puck drop, 7:30 local time in Red Deer. Thank you all very much for making this episode of Locked On World Juniors your first listen and first watch of the day and every day throughout this entire tournament, all the way through next Thursday. We'll even do a show on Saturday because we got to preview the quarterfinals for you guys. So we'll get through all that and more as we go along. I'll be back tomorrow to recap the 4 games and get ready for the games on Thursday. I'm Tyler Kuehl, the insider of the insiders. Follow me at TJKU29 on Twitter, Instagram, and fun little TikTok. Be sure to follow us here at Locked On NHL at Locked On NHL Pods. Now go make Locked On Today your second listen. Check them out. Daily coverage of the biggest news in sports on Locked On Today. We'll see you all tomorrow. Have a good day, folks, and stay safe out there.